And it's awesome because you talk about in one of the chapters of your book, I think you said Deliverance in Dallas, right? And you mentioned Russ Dizdar, which that book, I mean, you can't even get that book anymore, by the way, if you try to look for it. Yeah, The Black Awakening. It's like $2,000 on Amazon or something crazy like that. But I had a question about kind of your training, though, kind of going back before we jump into the healing and the deliverance part, because I think that's so important. It's so powerful, your story. But did they test you? I mean, how did they know that you would be kind of adept in this skill of like martial arts, military type, killing someone in under 2 minutes? How, like, are these kids like yourself? Are they tested in some way to like glean some insight into your gifts? Or how does that work?
So there's the highest paid position in a school is the school psychologist. Right. And so this is part of that finders club, like I was telling you. That's why I'm trying to make sure you understand it's not just one group. Right. These are people who are trained to study and analyze the mind and the people and their aptitudes. This is why, like, when you go into schools, they start doing these tests, right?
Yeah.
Like, why do they have standardized testing? And what are they actually looking for? If you ever participate, I went to a University of Colorado at Boulder, which is a research university. Their psychology department is one of the best in the world. It's like up there with the Stanford research psychology department and stuff. Research school. And when every freshman in this University of Colorado is required in the psychology department is required to go and do a certain amount of hours of research, meaning other people are going to conduct research on you. You go into the basements, the catacombs of that building, and you sit in these rooms and they have you look at computers and they ask you questions, and they might ask you questions about the shapes of things and the triangles. And you think you're taking a test that's asking you about, what are the shapes of these polygons? What colors do you remember? Meanwhile, the actual experiment is a totally different set of things that's going on. It's actually testing you based off of how you interacted with this person. And did you not see these different stimuluses that were in the room? They were strobing these lights at different frequencies, and they're trying to see whether or not that you would eat this food and do these things. There's always a secondary set of tests and analysis that's taking place. And so a lot of the standardized testing that you have in the United States that's mandatory, that they make children sit down and see whether or not they know these basic things, is to find these aptitudes, is to find whether or not they're willing to do this. And this comes from personality profiling. Like the most common one that's utilized is called the MPDD, which is like the Minnesota personality profile. It's basically to determine all kinds of psychological problems. But within that, there's hundreds of questions. Within that are lots of target questions. That means that's actually what they're looking for, is to help analyze whether or not these people have these types of skills and these capacities, and just the innate desire, the wiring. Like there's some people who are definitely more prone to help other people, right? This is like a big subset group of people. They like to help other people. So you can play and manipulate on those people through this entire channel. Then you have other people that want to be the warriors. They want to defend people. They want to be shepherds. They were made to go be shepherds out in the flock. And instead we don't have a bunch of sheep to go guard. And so we're all trapped in these rooms and prison cells, and you're like, I can't do anything, and I feel worthless all the time. The first job of every teacher is to make you learn helplessness, that you have no control over the rest of your life, that you have no confidence. You have to ask me if you want to pee. If you have to ask me if you can ask a question. If you want to say something, you have to learn. Authority tells you whether or not you can or can't, right? They're designed to totally manipulate children as soon as they get in that classroom. Whereas if you got children that are being raised by their families, they're learning life skills that are invaluable, actually equipping them with the things that they need to know in order to be successful, competent, capable people on the face of the earth. My family would do these battery of tests because my family had access to these military handlers, right? Like this guy, Richard. They would sit down and do little tests with you and see what your aptitudes are. I mean, a good and astute observer, not just somebody who looks at stuff, somebody who pays attention and understands what it is they're looking at, is really good at and capable of detecting talents that people have. You can find out pretty quickly whether one of your sons is really got a good balance. Does he have good proprioception? Is he able to keep his hands? Does he know where his hands are? Is he poking himself in the eye all the time when he's trying to pick his nose? Like basic stuff, right? Like I love children, but some of them are just physiologically not so hardwired to be really dexterous. They're not capable of doing that. But then you have others that are really inclined towards it, and we have others that have an aptitude for learning, just digesting huge amounts of information and being able to take tests very well. The people that learn really well within that system, they get pushed into an academics program. You got others that get pushed into the musical program, right? And so my aptitudes were just prevalent, bent in that direction. I
that makes sense.
Ability to learn a lot of stuff, but that was one of the areas that I liked it too. So it was like a passion. Anything I'm passionate about, I can learn. And most people are like this when they're freed from the shackles of slavery that have been put over them.
Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense. And so it's not just, would you say it's not just these, I'm kind of trying to understand how the bigger picture looks too, because you see like Hollywood celebrities, you see the royals, you see politicians, etc. It's not just bloodline. It's also
normal people.
So they're looking for anybody they can like capitalize on for their agenda, essentially.
That's why we have human resources departments in businesses.
Got it.
Call you human resources, y'all.
Yeah.
That's what they think of you as. So it's not, and you can find a resource from any of them, right? This is why you get cataloged and branded right early on in your school. You get a profile where people are like, this is what you are. And it's like, but it's the beguiling of people to think that you can shove a human in a box, in a profile, because the power of free choice is so supersedes the ability. It can destroy all those vows. In a moment, somebody can make a decision that changes the trajectory of the rest of their life and changes that epigenetic, that curse that should have been playing out for them and their children to the third and fourth generation gets broken by them. One choice, one decision. Those of you who are trapped in the system can make one decision right now. You've been exposed to this information. You're now accountable. You can now make a decision that changes the future, not just your life, but the lives of thousands of people all around you, because you are willing to look this in the face, and now you're willing to turn and face the forces of evil that have been building this empire against you. And you know what? You're going to get shot to pieces, and it's good for you. But this is why you have this armor that comes from truth. If you're standing on truth, you will go on the greatest adventure ride of your life, y'all. If you commit yourself to speak the truth and nothing but the truth for the rest of your life, and to only do what you know to be truth, you become a force of incorruptibility on the earth, and which means you are the absolute adversary to the kingdom of darkness and the kingdom of liars, right? So they set themselves against you pretty ferociously in the beginning because they try to get you back in line. It's like, why do your family members, when you wake up to these things and you're studying and learning about truth, they turn around and they try to devour you? That's because they learned, they were socially engineered in schools to, hey, when one of you gets out of line, everybody get them back in line. Get them back in line. They push us back into trying to force us back into the herd. The only way they can control us is if they recruit lots and lots and lots of other people to try to be our little shepherds, which is why you use people like, you're like, why does somebody want to be a TSA agent? That's a great question somebody should ask. Why do you want to go be a TSA agent? Well, you got a desire generally to either make money on one side of it, or you're willing to follow the rules very explicitly, whatever they are. Like, why is somebody going to become a police officer? Why is somebody going to go into those fields? Well, they're willing to follow, especially a state trooper. They're like, I am going to follow the system of dogma, and I'm going to enforce it. Those are kind of the rule following people, and those will become your enforcers. You want to put those guys in positions where they're going to keep the cattle in line, know? And so this is where those finder programs can find those aptitudes, and then you just create and cultivate a society that does that. But when you want to destroy a society like you did back in the 1970s and 80s in the inner cities, like, why did they turn Harlem into what it was? Why did they turn these inner city areas into what they were? Well, they just stopped doing trash services. If you just turned off in your neighborhood today, all the trash services stopped, right? Nobody came by and picked up your trash anymore. What's that place going to turn into real quickly? Real quickly, right? A literal heap of trash, right? And then if you just stop allowing the police officers, you shut down the police, defund the police stations in the area, defund the fire departments in the area, okay? And just start to slowly pull out the resources that are available. You then bring in huge quantities of super cheap drugs, right? Like this is the cocaine wars and the crack epidemics. They started bringing in this. If you guys don't know about Iran-Contra, super important information. Understand like why the Clinton Chronicles exist, why they were trafficking all these drugs out of Mena, Arkansas. Like, this is the governor of Arkansas, Bill Clinton. Why the Clinton family became the Clinton Foundation that we see today, engineering a society in its different direction. They destroyed and eradicated lives of many, many people, and they did that so that they could completely eradicate a social structure that was strong. They wanted to eradicate the mass, that any strength of a system comes first from the men that are in that right position, right order in a family unit that has a father, a mother, and children in a right order in the home is so powerful. You cannot control it the same. So you have to destroy that. You have to get the women out of the home. You have to get the men out of the home. You have to get the children out of the home. You have to create a society where everybody just gives themselves away to this system and becomes slaves, which is what happened to the Israelites when they were in Egypt. It's the same spiritual Egypt that we live in. We live in Egypt today. It's the same spirit behind them, convincing us to go become slaves. They tried to work the Israelites so hard that the men would not go be with their wives. They'd be too tired to go and be with their wives so that there would be no children. They were so given to their career that they wouldn't have any children. Like, it's a heart-wrenching reality that they've designed the same system here. But you know what? That spirit of Egypt, that spirit of bondage was broken when the people cried out. Like it says in Exodus 2 that Yahweh heard their cries. They groaned and cried. Like, I encourage people, cry, scream out at the horrors of the bondages you have there, where they're like, you can't come to the school unless you put this genetic experimentation program inside your children. Unless you give us your blood, you can't come in here. Unless you let us stab you and do a ritual to you and inject gene editing software into your child, you can't come in here. And
Yeah.
people are like, okay, I don't have any other option. You could go be homeless tomorrow, y'all. Live in the woods. It's incredibly brutal and wonderful. And it would be so much better for you than to give your children over to serpent eaters, man. Like, have some freaking piss and vinegar in your soul and be willing to resist the works of darkness. Say no. It's the most powerful 2 words you can ever learn in your life. No, I do. 4 words. No, I do not consent.
Yeah.
So powerful. Absolutely breaks all of those stupid, filthy mind control that they're just constantly bombarding everyone with. Resist the devil and he will flee from you.
So good. Preach. Yeah, no, it's so true. I mean, that was such a mass mind control, just all of the pandemic and all of that. And, you know, I think a lot of people woke up in 2020. I think people came to this understanding, but I think now they're continuing to kind of challenge some of these things that you're talking about, you know, that we've been conditioned to believe through the school system, through our news media, right?